What I've observed is that we figure ourselves right out of a bright idea. And as we keep thinking and thinking and figuring, that's where I feel the overwhelm gets in.
Confidence is an inside job, and it is the story we tell ourselves, whether it's one way or the next.
So just be really honest about your own viewpoint. Because I think when we try and be something else, or we're trying to make others like us, or we compromise ourselves because we're trying to get someone else to like us, that's hard. That's a lot of effort.
Hey, Jenna, welcome to the Wellness Revolution.
Hello, Amber. Thank you.
We're already laughing. This is going to be great because we're already dying laughing. So to those of you just tuning in, we're just talking about the lovely transition into the world of menopause. And so I was just saying about how, I'm almost 46. I don't have hot flashes yet, but what I do have is almost like a full beard of freaking wiry, black hairs growing. And you know what else I found the other day, which was shocking? I found a gray pube. And I was like, wow. So we're doing this, huh?
This is where we're going.
This is where we're going.
I wish I could say it gets better.
It does not.
It just gets coarser and bigger and more, and it starts growing down your neck. And it's just, thank God for laser hair treatment.
Thank God. I've got that. I've had to do several treatments on my face. Can't be stopping at the stoplights, tweezing hairs anymore. I can't. And I always do it at the stoplight because it's the best lighting. And usually the best. Right? Yeah. Anyways. Oh my God. Okay. Well, we're going to have so much to talk about, especially because I love, and that's really when your platform came across my desk when it was sent to me. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because your mission of really helping women over 40 to rediscover their purpose and lead with confidence, a hot topic, meaning it's so trendy. I just mean that's such a topic that I think is so relevant. I think for a lot of people over the age of 40, but I really do think for women over the age of 40 as well, because I know for me is when I turned 40, I was also going through a massive divorce, but I was getting ready to turn 40. And that's the year that I decided to start my own business because it was I was looking at my life and I was like, oh shit, this can't be it. And I have conversations like that with women all the time, I'm sure, as do you.
Yeah, I didn't realize that this reinvention thing is actually a real thing.
Yeah.
Or midlife crisis was really a midlife crisis. I don't really want the word crisis. I mean, it is, I think, because you're going through a major change.
Yeah.
And honestly, out of the gate, it's I decided to retire from the Hollywood industry.
Yeah.
And I was taking a look at what did I want to do. And what I felt was important as I was looking around the world and looking at what my kids were going to grow up in was we need to make some changes.
Yeah.
And the people that I felt that I could always rely on growing up were women.
Yeah.
And I just felt okay, if I can help women gain more confidence to get out there and spread better messages and then in turn help others. And then, the drops in the lake, right? Just sort of spread out.
Yeah.
And then as I dove into it, I had no idea that this was a thing, this reinvention, this, let me take in my life. The kids are older now. I've been working a terrible job. I want to stop just coping and I want to actually start creating my life and what I need to do. And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
What was surprising was sort of the lack of confidence or this perfectionism thing that was so real for the ladies.
Yeah. I say all the time that I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I feel like that's actually bullshit. I'm still a perfectionist. I try really hard. I would be lying. I'm I'm
just more aware.
Recovering.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Try, you guys, okay? But I'm not. I struggle with it a lot. I'm just more aware of that. Why do you think it is that when you hit 40? What do you think it is about that? Why a lot of women have almost this and I see it manifest in a couple different ways. It's either women around that age, they're looking at their life and maybe they're in a marriage that they feel trapped in, or they're in a job they feel trapped in, and they're kind of experiencing this sense of feeling lost, or they feel very stuck in their circumstances, right? Or you have, I know for me, it was some major things kind of happened around that time. And then it was okay, well, here's my opportunity now to really maybe change something. What do you think goes on here? It is very, very typical for around 40.
Yeah, I would definitely say in that decade for sure, because I'm now 52. So I'm also seeing this other evolution that's happening. Honestly, what I think it is, it's if you look at your 20s, for me at least, it was a bit more anxious, a bit more waiting for life to start and trying different things. And I was very nervous about stuff. And then the 30s, I was having kids and kind of settling in a little bit more. And I think at that point at 40, there's actually just a bit more confidence, I think. But a bit more confidence to kind of go, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Is this my existence?
Yeah.
Is this going to continue? Am I going to continue to put up with something? Is the last half of my life going to be just the effect of the choices I made in my 20s and my 30s? Or can I just make new choices?
Yeah.
And I think there is a bit of confidence. There's, of course, fear in doing that because it's change and whatever. But like you said, you went through a divorce at that time. That's a major change. You're oh, hey, I'm going to go this way. Go out on your own and have the confidence to do it. I'm sure you were scared. I'm sure you were nervous. I'm sure it wasn't the easy thing to do by any means.
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And, and I think, back to your point about kind of like 20s and 30s, and I think why maybe that 40s numbers, because I know for me, it was like in my 20s, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't even know what I
100.
was doing, right? Like I was such a kid still, thinking I was grown. I was not. And then you settle into your 30s. You said like you've made these choices now, but then I think and then I feel like really start adulting in your 30s, like for real. Like you may have a job and stuff in your 20s, and I actually bought a house in my 20s, all this thing, but mentally really not fully adulting. I think in your 30s, you're fully adulting, and then you do like a decade of that. And especially if you start having kids. And then by the time you hit your 40s, you're like, you may realize like, oh shit. Yeah. Like the decisions that I made, actually, I don't know that I love them. I know for me, like after I had 2 kids and I was like, I had 2 kids that were 2 years apart and I was working full time. And so like, it wasn't until they started to get a little bit older, I started to get a little bit older that like kind of like the dust settled. And then I was like, this is not it.
Yeah. You probably started to get some sleep.
Right. Right. That too.
It was like, wait a second, what just happened? Yeah. You're a decade ahead of me. I mean, my 20s was a lot of partying still and creating that, I was in Hollywood. I was in that world. There was no idea of responsibility, honestly. I feel like I'm about a decade behind. But yeah, I would say that you start noticing that you need to make a change. I don't know. I wasn't necessarily happy.
Yeah.
I felt like there was more to life. I felt like I could be creating more. I mean, didn't you have the feeling that you could just like your value is so much more, or you could be doing something more, or you have more power? I kept running into that.
Oh, yeah. And actually, I think for me, this whole like kind of overarching theme of like you're meant for more, it started showing up for me because I was in the same corporate sales job industry for like 18 years, about 10 years into that, because I got that job like right out of college. And then I was like, this is not, I cannot die being a print sales rep. Like I can't, I need to do more in my life. That I think for me started a little bit younger, but I felt kind of tied, which I think even a lot of women, when they start hearing that whisper of like, you're meant for more, this is not like, you feel kind of tied. And I know that was how it was for me because my husband at the time, he was earning more money than I was. And even though I made a lot of money, he was making more than I was. And so his job took priority and he traveled a lot. And so I was really kind of stuck. And I think a lot of women who kind of start to get that itch, but like they start to like have that feeling, I want more for my life. Maybe I want to change careers. Maybe this relationship isn't for me. I need to start making new friends, like whatever. I just think that can be very easy to just feel really like stuck where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for me, I've always made more money than my husband and I'm the breadwinner.
Yeah.
But then there was also kind of a role reversal and switch in that where there was a tremendous amount of responsibility
I can see that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But still, as a woman, I still wear the hat of handling the kids and the dinner and that and making the money.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's the modern woman. That's the new everyday woman. She just does it all pretty much.
I'm not sure I totally agree with everything.
Well, okay. Well,
let's find that balance right now.
Well, let's unpack that. I'm curious for you, what comes up for you with that?
I'm definitely in a pivot right now. It's been a year since I started this new business of really helping women expand and step into their leadership and take more responsibility. And you're catching me at a time where I'm looking to pivot. And it doesn't mean that my goal has changed, but sort of my technique or the way I'm going about it is changing because I am looking at, I'm 52, I'm going to be 53. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm going to bed at 11 o'clock at night. I'm coaching my daughter's soccer team. I'm volunteering at my church. I'm helping out a friend. I'm going here, I'm going there. And I'm like, wait a second, time out.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Yeah. I feel like the health is deteriorating. I feel like I'm taking pause. And I was talking to one of my clients that I coach and she's like, wow, you look a little different. I was like, yeah, I'm pivoting. And she's like, oh, what do you mean you're pivoting? And I'm like, I'm pivoting. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
She's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to change. And I'm like, yeah, because you start heading down one road and you sort of see what you like and what you don't like. And for me, I'm taking inventory of the things I do like and I want to do and where I feel that I can create the most impact. And I'm still shedding that sort of old workaday world that I have to do something I don't like in order to achieve money or that it has to be this hard work thing in order to do it. I'm sure you felt that probably in the corporate world, right? Yeah. Just like this sort of hammering. And I'm like, that's not how it's going to roll. Yeah. I'm in this exploration. I'm back to sort of, I'm doing what I'm doing and I love what I'm doing, but there's aspects of it I love, which is really putting on these retreats where I take women out of their environment and we go to a different environment and we're just in this environment with like-minded, just creating and looking at future and imagining that future and what that could be and how we can impact. That I love. Yeah. Because I see those aha moments for women and I see that I'm uplifting and I'm just sort of realigning, like really what I do well is I create these uplifting experiences for others to have these aha moments. And so I'm just sort of of diving into that and kind of going, what does that really look like? How am I going to really execute that? I think that's important for one to do when they are looking at a reinvention.
Yeah, I mean,
it's okay to change.
Absolutely. And I can tell you touch on something about doing like a retreat or something like that. The retreats that you're doing, what came up for me as you were saying this, and I really want the listeners to hear is like, man, if you ever have the opportunity to get in the room with other like-minded women who are really trying to make change in their life, whether or not that is a mastermind. You guys are listening to this, you're not familiar with the term, usually in like the business world, especially like we as like coaches or entrepreneurs, we have like circles of other people doing similar things that we're doing. We all kind of collectively get together and share ideas and kind of lean on each other and all of that. And it's just such an incredible experience. So whether or not, you are getting in the room with people like a conference or it's a retreat or, it is something like a business networking group or just something like those can be so powerful and so just like you said, uplifting and really, you can really walk away from a lot from getting in the room with people that want to do better, be better.
Really true. And I think that magnetic energy is important. Yeah. And it's why I specifically curate my retreats and make sure that there's a nice match of the group. Yeah. Like I don't do 50, 60, 70, 80, that's down the road, but I will do retreats that are 7 to 10 or 10 to 15. And it's very well curated. And man, the first one we did last year to now, that group of women, they have each other's backs. Yeah. For sure. Because you know how it could be with women sometimes. Sure. Either it's an amazing group and super supportive, or there could be something a little funny about it that doesn't feel very comfortable. I curate them in such a way to make sure that there's such a match and alignment of goals, but also pushing each other to the next step. Yeah. Others in there that are a bit more successful in certain ways, whether it's family or in business or whatever. But it is really, really nice to have that space to imagine the next phase of your life because it does take your imagination. Yeah. It's not something that we're handed. And I think that's the difference and the power that I want to give women is that it is up to you. And what do you imagine? And how do you want it to go? And how do we get there? Let's take it apart. But anyways, they're quite something. Like we were just saying before the hour, it's like one of the reasons why we coach is like, you learn from even coaching. You learn from helping. Yes. It keeps you in line.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yes. I actually talk to women almost every single day who want to get into coaching, but they always say the same thing. It's like, I want to coach women on, let's say, divorce, but I feel like I'm still healing from that. And I said, listen, you don't have to be completely to the other side to be able to help somebody else. You just have to be a few steps ahead. It's a perfect example of like me as a business coach. I coach beginner, divorced women to build their business out from the start, but I don't have it all figured out with business. I have a mentor that's ahead of me and she has a mentor who's ahead of her, right? But what's important is that I can share with you the blueprint of where you're at right now. So I think that that's important with the coaching. Yeah. So I'm curious, like for you, when you see this in your coaching and your practice, like for women who are feeling really overwhelmed after a big life change, right? What's one simple action that they can take to start building momentum? They're feeling stuck or they're feeling trapped. What's one simple action they can start to do?
Yeah, I have this motto, which is don't think and just do. Because I think especially for women, we have a tendency to think. We're figuring. And what I've observed is that we figure ourselves right out of a bright idea. Usually we have a bright idea. And as we keep thinking and figuring, that's where I feel the overwhelm gets in. So when I'm working with someone on like their overall strategy, and you probably run into this as well, I'll go, great, your overall strategy is you want an apple. And it's like almost this immediate, and it seems very female oriented to go into what's the battle plan and what's the checklist, what's the logistics and how am I going to do this? It just becomes this, and I have to go, no, stop, time out. You have no problem carrying out the logistics of getting the apple. Let's just make sure and see that the apple actually resonates with you as that is the goal that you want to achieve. And just know that we're going to work it all out, but just one step at a time. So I think it's just, I take them right back to what is that basic goal or purpose and get out of their own way of thinking about how they're going to do it all and the kids and this and the time and blah, 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 blah. That's the overwhelm. Let's just take one action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's back it up.
Well, even talking to those women though, because there's a lot of women listening to this who are navigating divorce. They want some financial independence. And so they've thought maybe about building a business of their own or maybe building a brand. What is like one mistake that you see women make when they're trying to establish their brand or business? business and how can they avoid it? These are some fun rapid fire questions that I always love asking just to kind of get the juices turning. So when you see when they're trying to establish a brand or business, what are some mistakes you see them make and how can they avoid it?
Absolutely. I think shooting off in all directions at once instead of just taking pause and go, yeah, okay, I still have to handle the kids. I still have to handle this financially. And I'm going to do this one thing first and do that one thing very well and then move on to the next thing. I think what I run into or have to handle or counsel on is sort of this manic, I have to do it all at once and I have to do it really fast, like this added pressure and this speed. While I like us to move fast, I think we're going to move faster by executing one cycle of action at a time and then moving on to the next thing. Because I think when you're transitioning, or at least for me when I was transitioning, it wasn't like I woke up the next day and there was $1 million in the bank account and I could just go start a business and I could just do whatever I wanted to do. Like I had to transition from this one sort of lifestyle into the other. And as they're blending, going from one into the other, it was like I had to just sort of handle these different things and then start picking up new things. But it wasn't like, let me do all the old and take on all the new.
Right.
You know, it was like, what from the old can I get rid of? What from the new can I take on? And honestly, I think that's where it comes handy to have your coach or your mentor or somebody to bounce it off of, because it's very easy when you're by yourself to just disperse into different directions. And that's the anxiety and the overwhelm and the emotion. And I know with my ladies, like, can even have a chat and I'm like, hey, man, you're right. That's a great idea. What do you need help with to do that? You can just feel it settle in their universe, you know,
oh my God,
just to have some direction.
Yeah. I mean, good. Listen, I tell women all the time when I'm on calls with them and talking about how to work together. And I always say straight up, I'm like, listen, whether or not you choose to work, if you take anything from this call, whether or not you choose to work, we choose to work together, or you want to work with somebody else. Right. If you're trying to start a business or make a major transition, work with somebody, like, because trying to figure it out on your own. I mean, I did that for a long time. And I was like drinking through the fire hose and going in all different directions, driving myself crazy and getting nowhere really. And my business exploded is when I hired a mentor. So I mean, I definitely agree. Like,
That's right.
for sure.
That's right.
So we talked a little bit about confidence maybe before we hit record, maybe in the beginning, but for somebody who is listening right now and is navigating, maybe having a little bit of self-doubt after a divorce or maybe a career change, what is your go-to advice for reigniting their confidence?
I don't know if my answer is popular.
I love those answers. Those are the best answers. What you got?
You know, I'm a bit tough. But tough love. So when someone is feeling a lack of confidence, I'm like, you just have to bypass it. You just have to take that and just go, okay, and park it over here and have enough of a necessity level or drive to just go on to the next thing. I feel like if we pay too much attention to the lack of confidence or the worry or whatever, it will cause a distraction. Now, I say that confidently because I had to do that for myself. But I think the other thing that I will say to someone is take a look at what you've accomplished so far. In all honesty, the only security you have is the confidence to know that you're competent. You might not be perfect. You might not get it right out of the gate. But when you just make a decision, you start moving in one direction. Like I've had the first 50 years, the first 40 years, I'm still here. I've encountered a number of problems, a number of catastrophes, a number of uphill battles. And when you start to welcome those barriers and you start learning how to overcome that barrier, you gain self-confidence. That's really the trick of it. And I think when you recognize oh, wait a second, I have come this far. I had a child. I dealt with a marriage that maybe was not so great. I got myself out of it. I've had to deal with girlfriends or friends getting mad at me and I've had to overcome it, but I've overcome it. Instead of putting the attention on what you did incorrect, it's like, okay, I didn't do that correct, but you know what? I know I can correct it. And I think that's where the confidence comes in, and just kind of letting go of it having to be absolutely perfect, or letting yourself know that it could be wrong too. Like I make decisions that aren't always correct, but at least I make one.
Yeah.
And I can always just change it and go in another direction. So I don't know if that's popular, but that's sort of like my successful action. And I try not to get people stuck too much in the worry of it. I'm like, okay, good. Well, let's just try it.
Yep.
Let's just go
because
for it.
As we all know, confidence, I think, is an inside job, and it's the story we tell ourselves, whether it's one way or the next. It's not like a tangible thing. It's something that we create for ourselves, whether or not we have that. And I'm not making light of it but whether or not your previous experiences or, things you've gone through. I mean, I was somebody who suffered from low confidence from a long time, but what I've learned is that you can talk all day long about improving your confidence. At the end of the day, though, the only thing that is going to get you through that is action. That is it. It is.
That's right.
It is action. And so sometimes I like that advice of sometimes you just have to literally take that thought or those feelings and just sort of park it and be like, okay, yeah.
Well, yeah. And I think also it's interesting. I remember being around 11 or 12 and I was introduced to the concept of low self-esteem. And I remember thinking, oh, am I supposed to have low self-esteem? Because they say young women have low self-esteem. So maybe I should have low self-esteem. Let me find something to have low self-esteem about. I really had no awareness of low self-esteem until, the hormones started coming in. I was low self-esteem. And then it was sort of like, I started to realize probably in my mid 40s, like, wow, there's a lot of false information out there of how we're supposed to be or not supposed to be, especially as a female in the Hollywood industry, which is a very male dominated industry. You're in sales. That's also usually male dominated. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain way I had to be or didn't have to be. And I remember having this realization of like, wow, I am so much nicer to others than I am to myself. And if I'm not nice to myself, how am I going to have self-confidence? And I started to like really look at myself. I'm like, oh, what do I do really well? What do I do well? I am a great listener for my friends. Like I am that rock that people can come to, and I love to listen. I love to help. I love to uplift. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I would want that, for myself. I need to give myself that. So I think kind of recognizing what we do, we have a tendency to kind of look at others and just kind of go, okay, I got to like some things about myself. That's it. And knock off this false information that we have to have low self-esteem or that we're less or anything like that. And I think in your 50s, you really don't give two shits anymore. My 40s, you start to not do that, and definitely in the 50s. Because you know what? Between the hot flash and the hair growth and the weight gain, you kind of have to go, I'm going to ride on my personality at this point. You know what I mean?
Well, first of all, absolutely not. When you said you're 52, I was like, no way. So actually, you look pretty damn good. So I don't want to hear that. But yes,
I have some good genetics, a little Botox here and there.
Right? I think that is true. I think as we start to age, I think it's a twofold. I think you start to become more comfortable with yourself. And in doing so, you just give, like you said, zero fucks given. Like, okay, whatever this is. Well, you've mentioned Hollywood a couple times. And I know you've, just based on some of the things I've read about you, you really had such an incredible journey from Hollywood to mentoring leaders. For women who are over 40 and they're navigating life changes, what lessons from your career could help them reinvent themselves with purpose? Like what lessons did you learn along the way that helped them to get a little more intentional with purpose and if they're going to do this whole reinvention?
Yeah, I think I paid attention. Instead of just going from the coping of every day, I started to pay attention to how I was feeling. And I've told the story before, but where the decision really came is I was driving in my car on my way to a big client, making good money. And I remember thinking to myself, I am so bored. Like if I have to make another commercial about an iPhone or a Samsung phone or a Coca-Cola, what in the world am I doing? Like I was definitely on the hamster wheel of, oh, I have money. Oh, I can go buy things. I started to feel very trapped by things. I just felt non-creative. I was like, oh, this is it? And not to say that I don't want money. I love money. I love to create with money, but I love to have the freedom of money so that I can really help others. But I was just sort of like, what am I doing? And so I think what happened to me sort of naturally as I'm sitting at this long red light down here in Florida is I was just like, wow, I am so bored and I am miserable. And it's not like I finally got the big job and the big stuff. And I was like, it's not the answer. I need purpose. And so I think whatever someone can do to work with a mentor or work with a coach and be asked the right questions and really have the patience to take a look. Because I think it's hard to really understand your goals or your purpose or what it is that's unique to you. It does take someone to kind of chime that back and forth. For me, that's it. Because it's not like this past year has been easy starting a new business. You have your trials and tribulations. You have the income comes and goes. I mean, there's something about an entrepreneur, that fire, that thing. But I always knew that goal was there. And so I could always go back to that. And that's what I really make sure that my ladies have that work with me. Like we really take the time to name out the goal or goals and then just ensure that like, okay, if it's getting rough and it's getting tough, let's go back and look at that. Does that still drive you? Does that still inspire you to go? And if it does, usually it does, then great. Then we're on the right track. Because it's not ever going to come easy. And I think that's also false information that we have that, oh, it's not coming easy. I guess that's the wrong thing. Like, no. If it starts getting harder and you start having bigger barriers and bigger problems, push through because on the other side of that is amazing. It's huge.
Absolutely. Well, talking about setting goals, I think a lot of women feel stuck between just setting some goals for themselves and then also, but then feel stuck between that and finding maybe their deeper purpose. Like, how do you really distinguish between the two, like setting goals and finding a deeper purpose so that they can really create a fulfilling path forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And well, I think for me, the purpose is the foundation for the goal. So the purpose is the reason why.
Okay.
So most people have a purpose that has something to do with wanting to help something. That's at least what I've noticed. Like, I want to help others be happier. I want to help others through divorce. I want to help others learn how to make a side hustle. I want to help others have a better relationship with their children. That's a purpose.
Yeah.
The goal of it is like, well, okay, well, what are you actually creating? Is that a coaching business? Is that an online course? Is that a retreat? Is that a brick and mortar? Is that an e-commerce business? What is that goal that you're actually creating that is going to be the vehicle for your purpose? And so I think that differentiation and understanding those definitions are huge. But I think what's even more senior to all of that is what is the product that one actually delivers? Meaning, what is that thing? When I go into a room, and I said this earlier, I like to create uplifting experiences, whether that's one-on-one coaching, whether I'm doing a retreat, whether I'm just having a conversation with someone, or I'm walking into a birthday party. That is the product that I like to deliver every single time. I like to walk into a room and uplift the experience for those in the room. You know what I mean? So that is sort of my product that is the result of my purpose and my goal of creating a safe space of leaders being able to create saner messages. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And what came up for me is you said something about you got really clear on the product you were delivering, but you weren't just, you rattled off some examples that weren't even business related, right? And I want to talk about that for a minute because for maybe some of the listeners, they don't have an interest to become an entrepreneur. What is the importance of creating, if you are looking to reinvent yourself over the age of 40 and make some changes, creating your own personal brand? How does that idea of creating your own personal brand and your own product relate to women who are not entrepreneurs? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's like I try and get one to look at what is their juju, I call it. You know, what is their uniqueness? Like, what would someone say about them? What is that gift that they give? I have a friend, she's infectious. She has the best laugh. She makes others laugh whenever they're around her. You know, and it's not a laugh like a jokey sort of like make fun of people laugh. It's just one of those that you just, that is her gift. And it is super infectious and everyone around her just starts laughing and having a great time. That is her product in anything she does, whether it's with work or she's with a friend or she's with her family or whatever it is, that's what she does. You know what I mean? And so I think that's important. And I think that it's not really a reinvention. I think you're kind of getting back to the basic you. And I think what happens in this midlife is you're sort of shedding what I said earlier, like these false ideas of who you need to be or how you need to be or the kind of job you're supposed to have or the kind of clothes you're supposed to wear. And I feel like the reinvention is really just kind of finding you and the strength in you. And that's been my quest. I'm like, for the next 50 years, I want to just be more me because I am so much happier when I'm me and not trying to be something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So why would somebody though, if they are feeling like someone's in midlife and they're feeling stuck, or maybe they are just feeling like, yes, they're hearing that voice, I'm meant for more. And why is it important though for them to think about what their product is, right? Like you mentioned, your friend had the laugh. Why does that matter?
I think it matters when you understand what you do very well. I think that ties right into self-confidence.
Yeah.
I think that ties right into what you can do. And it gets out of this sort of materialistic, well, I'm a publicist. Okay, but that's not really who you are. That is something you do.
Yeah.
That's not really the beingness of you or you as a person.
Yeah.
And I think when we have the confidence in who we are and what we want to be, then you can do whatever you do more as yourself. You know, and then you can have the things that you want to have more as yourself and not this idea like, oh, I have to make sure I have a house like everyone else or my clothes need to be like everyone else. I just find it super freeing. At least for me, that is my experience. And that's what I'm seeing with the women I'm working with is like, let's just really, really find the answer for you. And let's shed anything else that was mom's idea or your aunt's idea or your best friend's idea or any of that and just have the confidence of what do you like? I mean, I have two women who always wanted to be painters. And one of them is so incredibly good that when I got her to create the time to start painting, she sold like 6 paintings in a week.
Wow.
And she was like, you don't make money as an artist. And I'm like, well, some do.
Yeah.
Some figure it out,
Yeah.
you know? So she's just like living this life. Now she wants to teach art, and she's just living this whole new path. Beautiful.
Where did you start her though? Because I know some women are listening to this right now and they're saying, God, I maybe had, now let me back this up. I will say there's a lot of women that are listening that are saying, God, that would sound amazing. But like I've been doing for everybody for so long. I hear this day in, day out. I'm sure you do too. Like, I don't even know what I like anymore, or I don't even know that. So let's start there. Like, what advice would you give that woman who's like, man, I've been momming it. I've been being a wife for so long. I've been doing this. Like, I don't even know what I'm good at, what lights me up. Where does that woman start?
I usually ask when they were a kid, what journey did their imagination take them on? When you were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we were lucky. We didn't have the iPads and all the distractions, right? So it was like we had our imagination. There was some idea or something we came up with. Now, whether that sticks or not, I kind of start there.
Yeah.
So for like this painter woman, for her, it was actually when she was in high school, she had the idea of painting. She saw that she could do something and she found it so comforting and she was just very happy doing it. But then she got married when she was 19. And then, you know, her husband was a very successful actor and, you know, was in TV, and they had 4 kids and she was doing that and she would paint here and there or whatever. And now they're all older, and it took her a little bit like, okay, maybe it's money. Maybe it's just starting an art studio. Maybe it's that. And it was like, well, wait a second. Maybe it's me going back to painting. So we just sort of like followed that trail, that line. And for some women who don't know, I've had maybe 1 or 2 who really have no idea. We just try different things. Try something.
Right? I mean, I think that you're right. Like, I think that is so true. Like, yeah, you could sit down and try and do a brain dump all day long, but sometimes it just means like, you know what? I'm going to go try this thing and let's just see how it goes. And then you'll know like, it does require putting yourself out there a little bit, I think, to try new things. But I think that that's probably the best place to go if you're not able to think about something. I know, you know, so much of your work is, you know, empowering women, and I know some like maybe in leadership positions. And so for women, these women who are stepping into leadership roles for the first time in midlife, what key mindset shift do they need to maybe embrace to feel confident and capable? There's a lot of women, even just talking to a lot of women who listen to the show, or maybe were stay-at-home moms. We're stay-at-home moms for like their entire, you know, marriage, and now they're getting divorced and they're stepping into the workforce, and that itself is a leadership role. I even think of a leadership role even for the women listening who maybe went through divorce and now as a single parent, like that's a whole new leadership role. So even just leadership outside of just business, what's like the key mindset shift that you think that they need to make?
First thing I say to them is, have you ever helped someone else? And usually the answer is yes.
Right.
And I said, great, then you're a leader.
Right.
I don't care if it's 1 person, 5 people, 10 people, 1,000, 1,000,000, 5 million. You're still leading and you're helping. If you've accomplished something and you have some piece of information on how to do something better, you can share that. And that usually handles a little bit of that self-confidence, like, okay. I will say I do have a criteria where I don't necessarily work with people who don't have an interest in wanting to lead, and that's totally fine. But it's just in my background, and what I do is I help people build the audience. So they have to have a bit of an extroverted personality or an interest in going on podcasts or going on stages or lending one-on-one or creating a course or doing something of guidance, you know? So I haven't had too many people who are just like completely scared to move forward. There is some sort of interest there, but more or less what I've run into is people not knowing what to do first, or where do I go, or can I really do it, or will people really listen to me? It's more of that, even though they have the drive of wanting to lead others, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's really it. It's like just sort of putting their hat on, or the confidence. You're a mom. You've been
you
leading
can do
and helping.
like girl, you've been leading people your whole life. Like don't get in your head about this. You know how to do this. You can do this. And this is why I think too, I tell a lot of my women who are navigating divorce, and if they're stepping into starting their own business or getting the imposter syndrome, I'm like, girl, you've done hard things before. You can do this, right? Yeah. Well, I want to talk just for a second about this idea about networking, a little bit about networking, because I think that, and when I use the term networking, I'm not just talking about networking like in the business sense, right? I think we all know going to those like awkward business mixers with the freaking name tag, all the things. I think even networking as becomes relevant, even like socially, I think, especially like for women over 40, because I think a lot of women are in this place, whether or not you've gone through a divorce or not, but I think a lot of women are in this place where they're reevaluating their friendships. And so they want to make maybe different adult friends. Maybe they have gone through a breakup or a divorce where now they're having to network with the opposite sex or whatever, same sex, whatever your preference is. I just mean networking to find love, right? And that's networking. And then there's also business networking. And I know you talk a lot about how networking is really, really important for like exponential growth. I think in business, love, relationships, in all areas can feel really intimidating in all arenas. And so I'm just curious, like, what is one way that women can approach networking, whether it's with friendships or it's with a love interest or it's in business, that feels natural and effective? For somebody like me who's been an extrovert, and listen, I was in a sorority in college, so they teach you how to network from the get-go, okay? Like networking for me is not difficult, but I know for a lot of women it is. So what advice do you give them?
Yeah, there's a few things that came to mind. I think the first is I would advise to take responsibility for the room you just walked into, no matter how awkward you feel. And just start being interested in another and take the interest off yourself. So when I have women, for instance, who I'm inspiring them to do more social media, right? Because I want better messages on social media. It's like, oh my God, I can't go on camera. The way I look, or now I'm chubby. I said, okay, hold on a second. Take the attention off you and put it on the person you're helping through the camera on the other side of the screen. And they go, oh, I can do that.
Yes.
I said, absolutely.
Yes.
Just take it off yourself for a second and just put on, and not to say that even people think they're self-important. It's not even that,
Right.
you know, I mean, you have people who are self-important, but you have people who are just like, I don't want the attention on myself. I said, absolutely. Put it on just the other person. So when I walk into a room, I just find myself, no matter how awkward, even for me, and I'm sure you've run into this too, even being an extrovert, there's just still that moment where you have to go, okay, let's get the ball rolling, you know, and just go, hey, how are you? What are you interested in? And I just start the conversation. A, it takes the attention off me. B, it puts the interest on another, which people light up. And again, what's my product? I like to give uplifting experiences. So I know if I go in and I ask someone questions and I find out about them and I'm like, wow, that's so, and I'm truly interested. A, they're going to be like putty in my hands, but B, it's like I'm uplifting them.
Yeah.
You know? And so that is my advice, is just go into anything with the attention off yourself and just sort of put it on someone else, and go into a room without all those criticisms of all the past that either you've had about someone else or someone else has said to you, and just try and admire something that you like about it. And it automatically switches that insecurity. At least for me, I found if I can go in and not be like, ew, the food isn't that good, or ew, this, instead just go, oh, wow, look at those flowers. They're really beautiful. And oh, she has a cute sweater. Let me go talk to her. You know, it might feel a bit forced, but unfortunately we have to do that sometimes to really change our viewpoint, our attitude, and get less introverted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and that's what I want. And I think it's a good point. Even though I said I don't have a problem in networking, I will say there are awkward moments for me too, even though I'm a little, probably maybe a little bit more comfortable. I still have, so I guess I just share that to say, like, if you are somebody who's listening to this and feels awkward, or everybody else feels awkward in the room too. Okay. Like nobody, it's even in a big group, or even if you're like going out on a date, or you're like out someplace and you're at a, you know, a bar, or you're at a social event and you're just trying to meet people, you know, you do have to, I love that advice of just really take the focus off yourself and just maybe put the focus on the person you're trying to speak to.
Yeah. And I think a really key point to that is also just be really honest about your own viewpoint. Because I think when we try and be something else, or we're trying to like make others like us, or we compromise ourselves because we're trying to get someone else to like us, like that's hard. That's a lot of effort. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just better to say what's honest for yourself. Now, I have a friend who's recently divorced. I've been married for 20 years, but she's been confiding in me, and her husband is already dating someone, and she's just starting to, and she's like, it's so awkward. And I was like, yeah, but the more that you just sort of be interested in the person and ask questions, you're going to know right off the bat. Like, you've already been through a 20-year marriage. Like, you're going to know off the bat. If it doesn't work, or it's not connecting, then it's not connecting.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, And while that sounds so simple, I could totally get where she's going through and that angst and wanting to be liked. But she was like, oh my God, you're right. It's so much easier to not try and be liked and just be more herself, but not be mean or anything.
Sure. Well, I mean, a couple things. One, you're only doing, if you posture and position yourself to something that you're not, that's not a long-term solution. And honestly, it's going to come out in the wash anyway. So it's why even waste your time? Now, I will say all that to balance it with, though, if somebody's listening out there and you're just getting back into the dating world or you are dating, like you also, though, don't have to uncover this person and share your complete life story on the first meeting. Like there is something to be said about taking a little bit of time and just getting to know some. I just think that that's really good advice is just be yourself. Because at the end of the day, either they're going to like you or, well, this is the other thing I want people to remember is that you're also interviewing them. Like whether or not it's a friend or a person, like it's not just about whether or not they like you. Like, girl, stop worrying about and put the focus instead of worrying about if that friend or that employee, like whatever is going to like you and worry about, are you going to like them? I think that mindset right there is like fly under the radar confidence right there, right? Do you know what I mean? Like that's the subtle confidence.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even get married until I was 34, right? So I went through that evolution and I remember saying to myself, I just need to have the freedom to be myself.
Yeah.
I need to like be around someone that I can just be myself. And again, I think if we're saying the same thing by being interested in another, whether it's a business relationship or a new girlfriend or a love interest or whatever, I think there is power in doing that. But like you said, it's like you don't have to put it all out there on the table right away, but it is just sort of listening and observing and communicating.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one final question I have as we kind of wrap this up is that I think there's a lot of women out there that are listening. They're listening to what we're saying, and they also are at a point where they do want to, really grow their confidence and really expand and grow and maybe make some changes and all of that. But what a lot of people miss is that there are a lot of opportunities for, I think, growth and just even existing opportunities in people's existing networks, right? And so what is one way women can use their existing network to really expand, kind of just starting where they're at, expand opportunities and growth?
Yeah, I think one has to really make themselves known as to what it is that they're doing. So, for instance, I have 30 years working in Hollywood as a producer. And then one day I decided to retire and start something new. Yeah. So I needed to then grab attention for this new thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I just started communicating about it as I'm finding my way and making myself known at every party I was going to or on social, calling my friends, hey, let's go grab a coffee. What are you doing? This is what I'm doing. And not to say that I was really out of communication with people, but it was also just, hey, I'm trying on this new thing for size. And this is what I'm doing. And, just making myself known. And then on the other side of that, finding out what it is that people really need and want to my new sort of existence. I had some people I'd meet with and be like, oh my God, I've been trying to change and do something. Like I want to step more into a leadership role. How do I do that? And then just start the conversation. And I started to find out information. And basically I was surveying to find out what people needed and wanted from what it was that I was doing. And that's how I started to formulate sort of those ideas and get the confidence that, oh, wait, people do need this. And this is what I'm going to go forward with. And so that's what I think the best but the best tool we have is really to communicate.
Yeah.
And just really find out. And so that is what I would say is the best way to network or get out there. There's the main marketing strategy that I give my ladies. The very first one is a strategic partnership. Who can you align yourself with? Who can you connect with? Who has a larger audience than you? How can you 5x your audience by maybe pulling 4 or 5 people together and do an event together or do a virtual thing together? Yes, we want to do paid advertising or we want to do social media, but out of the gate, the fastest way to double your audience is just start connecting up with others. Align yourself with others, and their audience and your audience combined is just right there is going to 5x you or 3x you or get yourself more known. But the more attention we get and the more that we're out there, the more that your income's going to increase, the more that you're going to find out what you really like to do and what you don't like to do, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And I think that's really the simple trick of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I love even just, I know you gave the social media example, but even I think for people who aren't in the online space, to your point is just think about the people you know. What are the people you know? What are they doing? Who do they know? And it's not necessarily leveraging all of your friends, but actually, yes, it is. And if you you talk to like top CEOs and like they are masters at this. And in fact, they're leveraging each other for people they know and business opportunities. And it's not in a sleazy, slimy way, but I mean, that is the power of networking. So thinking about who do you know? What are the opportunities? How can you just have an honest and authentic conversation with them about maybe what you're doing or thinking about doing and just seeing where it goes? I think that's what's really important.
Well, I'm really glad you said though too, because I think there's this, again, this false information that we get. You shouldn't use your friends or they're going to get mad at you or family members or this or that. It's like, no, because it is your connections. It is your network. You're going to help them. They're going to help you. And the thing that I say to people, I said, look, if you were in their position, wouldn't you help them?
Sure.
And the answer always is like, absolutely. I said, great.
Yeah.
Give them a chance, an opportunity to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Well, Jenna, I love this. There's so many nuggets that you shared today, and I appreciate that. What do you have going on right now that you want to share with the listeners? Where can they reach out to you?
I created a free gift, which is probably the best way to find me, which is Lead with Jenna. So people can download a leader builder, and it goes through some pushing your goals and purpose and takes people through some branding and networking. But because nobody can spell Capozzi, that most people can't find me at Jenna Capozzi. But what I have coming up is I have some amazing retreats coming up next year, starting in January in Florida and Rosemary Beach, and then going to Costa Rica in March for CEOs and founders, and then seeing the leaves turn in Massachusetts in the fall. So there's more of them coming. But Lead with Jenna is a great way to get a tool. I'll get your email, I'll connect up, and it will also have my website on there since spelling my name's challenging.
Girl, I love that you're doing that in Rosemary Beach. That's where actually I got married. I spent a ton of time. Yeah, right there in the Western Green that overlooks like where all the
that's right.
I mean, that's just my happy place. It is a magical place. It's so funny. Like if you're from, even people Floridians don't know about that area. It's such like a tucked away, that whole 30A section. It's such a wildly beautifully, and like the architecture, like Alice Beach is crazy. Yeah. Rosemary, Seaside, all of that. So that's really fun.
Maybe you should come, Amber.
I know. That's what I
should come.
Seriously. We'll talk offline. Yeah. Jenna, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.